I'm a kingfish popper, and I know which bait to choose. That's why so many women is crying. Those old kingfish blues.
To 8, roll out of bed, I was wide awake. I rested my pocket, found a $50 bill. Oh boy, it gave me a thrill. I'm in the green light groove. Well, the green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. Everything is going my way. I got into traffic, no red lights today. Pushed down the pedal, I'm on my way. Got to work, my boss gave me a raise. The green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. Well, the green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. Everything is going my way. This way, you got trials and trouble and bills to pay. Today is the day, everything is fine. As long as I keep it in between the lines, I'm in the green light groove. Well, the green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. Everything is going my way. I'm in the green light groove. Well, the green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. I'm in the green light groove. In the green light groove, everything is going my way.
you know that ain't right. You better cut it out. Yes, cut it out. You better cut it out, little one, be well, it feels too late. Now, when you get drunk, you wanna fuss and cuss. When you get drunk, you throw a rock in my head. You better cut it out. Yes, cut it out. You better cut it out, little one, be well, it feels too late.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this special call meeting to order. Instead of an invocation, we're going to have a moment of silence today. Thank you very much. If you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. If we could have roll call, please.
Vieira. Goods.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Dingfelder.
Here.
Cedro.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
And Maniscalco.
Here.
There's a physical quorum present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shelby, yes, sir.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of City Council. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. Today is February 22nd, 2021, and this is a special call hybrid meeting of the Tampa City Council. This special call meeting is relating to the notice of intent to suspend the sale of alcoholic beverages pursuant to Section 27-318 of the City of Tampa Land Development Code. It's being held during the COVID-19 state of emergency and is being conducted live with an in-person quorum present in City Council chambers. However, in response to the COVID-19 restrictions, members of the public are encouraged to participate virtually through video teleconferencing, which is referred to by Florida statutes and rules as communications media technology. This meeting is held in accordance with the emergency rules of procedure as adopted by resolution number 2020-225 as amended by resolution number 2020-490. The public and the citizens of Tampa are able to watch, listen, and view this meeting on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and on the internet at tampa.gov/livestream. And there are instructions on the City Council's website at tampa.gov/citycouncil, one word, for ways to be able to participate remotely in this hearing by pre-registering. Those people who don't have access or have not pre-registered can use the facilities that are located on the second floor of Old City Hall at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard. Now, Council, the public has had the opportunity to comment and present evidence if they wish to in advance of these hearings, and written comments that have been emailed or mailed have been distributed to City Council and also will be included in the permanent record of today's meeting. And all public comments timely received by mail, email, or via CMT will be awarded equal consideration as if the public comments were made in person. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a motion to open the 9 a.m. public hearings 1 through 4? We have a motion from Councilmember Good, second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson-Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members. Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Mr. Chair, if we could take up items 3 and 4 first, if we could. On item 3, I submitted a memo to council on Friday requesting a continuance of the hearing for the Ritz Ybor at 1503 East 7th Avenue to March 8th, your special call meeting on March 8th at 9 a.m.
Can we get a motion to continue to March 8th at 9 a.m.? This is for item number 3.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Any particular reason why the continuance?
Well, we've had some discussions with the Ritz about possibly resolving the alleged violations.
I'm sorry,
So we're continuing.
I didn't get. I've been out, so I didn't get the memo.
No, I
so
understand. I understand.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Goods. Is that correct? Or who made the motion to continue?
Second.
Motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Goods. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Yes, ma'am?
And thank you, Mr. Chair. On item number 4, I believe Mr. LaRoe is downstairs and would like to make a request of council.
Mr. LaRoe, does he need to be sworn in for this continuance or no? No? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. LaRoe. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Yes, I also spoke with the city attorney's office last week, and we are also hoping to engage in meaningful conversation. So we requested a continuance for that reason, and also because a second notice has a hearing coming up on March 8th as well. So we were hoping to consolidate those and make some strong steps in the right direction in the interim. So I would respectfully request the council consider and grant our continuance.
Chair, file number E.
Please, your microphone.
Sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now you can hear me. File number E 2021-8, Chapter 27. I move that it be continued until March 8th, 2021.
Very good.
We have a motion from Councilman Citro, second from Councilman Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Councilman Citro, did you state the time on that? I did
9
not-
o'clock?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Velez, since we are giving a continuance for items 3 and item 4, how many do we have on the agenda for that date of March 8th?
I believe there are going to be
We'll make sure we're not overloaded.
4.
There'll be 4.
Before. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am?
Thank you. And I didn't want to interrupt, but I know that you're up there on the 3rd floor and we're down here on the 2nd, and I just wanted to, for the record, tell you how wonderful a job Lisa Edwards is doing. She's keeping this from the chaos that it might otherwise be, but she's doing an excellent job, and I know you can't see it, but I wanted you to know that.
Thank
And
you
we're
very much.
grateful for her help and yours.
Thank you
for the
very much.
privilege.
And yeah, I'm grateful for Lisa each and every day. She's my legislative aide. I'm truly blessed to have her working for the citizens and for us. She really goes above and beyond. So I know Lisa's listening.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're great. Always doing a great job. Thank you very much. Thank you,
You're
sir.
here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I'd first like to make some general remarks that are related to both hearings, and then we would take up each individual hearing
And Ms.
after my general remarks.
Ms. Johnson-Velez, if I'm sorry to interrupt, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney behind you. I just wanted to put on the record, Council, and I've put that before you, the roadmap for today, just so that the public has a sense of where this is going, and certainly I believe these have been provided to the respondents in this case. You're going to hear general remarks from Ms. Johnson-Velez regarding the purpose of the hearings. Then comes the city's presentation, followed by City Council's questioning of city witnesses if needed. Then the respondent will have an opportunity, if requested, to cross-examine the city's witness. If there's a need for redirect or recross, we'll take that up. But after that, then comes the respondent's presentation. And like the city's presentation, that is to be set for a time up to 30 minutes unless additional time is requested and decided to be afforded to them by City Council. Following the respondent's presentation comes City Council's questions of respondents' witnesses if needed, followed by the city's cross-examination of the respondents' witnesses if requested. Again, there's going to be redirect or recross if necessary and requested. And then, Mr. Chairman and members of council, if there are members of the public for 3 minutes that wish to comment for the case before the decision, they will have that opportunity, followed by the respondent's rebuttal and summation up to a 10-minute limit unless necessary to grant more. And likewise, we close then with the city's rebuttal and summation up to 10 minutes before council closes the public hearing and deliberates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr.
Now,
Shelby.
I see Councilmember Dingfelder is looking to be
Yes,
recognized.
Councilman Dingfelder, you have your hand up, sir?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Council, Mr. Shelby and Susan. Mr. Shelby, quick question in regard to the process that you've laid out. How about the quote penalty phase? If any of these cases get to a penalty phase, you expect that as a separate argument, or are you assuming that argument is rolled in? I'm thinking maybe both sides should have 3 minutes or 5 minutes for on the penalty side, because clearly that might be a different set of arguments.
Sir, that is an excellent suggestion, and that is something that we did do last Thursday. We did bifurcate the hearing. As a matter of fact, we're going to ask that you do that again today, to bifurcate them, and you'll get to that when you review 27-318. Yes, there would have to be a finding first, and if it moves to the penalty phase, then yes, it would be appropriate for both sides to have the opportunity to address that issue. Thank you, sir. I would add that to this list, counsel. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Johnson-Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. Council members, Land Development Code Section 27-318C1F, as in Frank, authorizes City Council, after conducting a public hearing, to consider the suspension of alcoholic beverage sales for cause if council finds that the property owner, holder of the alcoholic beverage license, operator of the establishment, or any agent or employee thereof has failed to comply with any provisions of the health and sanitation ordinances of the city, the county, or laws of the state after having received reasonable notice to eliminate or correct the condition on the property. So there were 2 local emergency orders, which can be found at tabs 11 and 12 of the binders that you have in front of you, that were in effect during all times material to the allegations in the notices of intent that you will be hearing this morning. The first was Executive Order 2020-42, issued by Mayor Jane Castor on August 19, 2020. It required every person to wear a mask in any indoor location open to the public when not maintaining social distancing. It also required business operators of an indoor location of a business open to the public in the city to make reasonable efforts to require all persons within their location to wear a face covering when not maintaining social distancing. And the order set out 4 minimum steps that the business had to take in order to have been found to make reasonable efforts. The business had to post signage at all of their public entrances. If they had a PA system, they had to announce over the PA system that masks are required. On a regular basis, they had to make those announcements. Then they had to require all employees to wear masks. And then they had to make all other reasonable efforts, including asking patrons not wearing masks or face coverings to do so. The executive orders issued by Hillsborough County were similar to those of the city. The mayor's and the county's executive orders, which were issued in response to a declared statewide public health emergency, have the force and effect of law and effectively constitute local health and sanitation regulations. So the failure to comply with all applicable conditions of the wet zoning, including these local health and sanitation regulations, constitutes a violation of Section 27-318C1F. So it's important to note that we're here today as a last resort. The express intent of both orders was to seek voluntary compliance with the provisions and to educate and warn of the dangers of noncompliance. In the event that voluntary compliance was not achieved, then enforcement was to be undertaken as a last resort. So the focus of today's hearings is on each establishment's effort or lack of effort to require all persons within their establishments to wear a face covering when not maintaining social distancing. So it's relatively easy to post a sign. It's relatively easy to put a basket of masks out in the front of your establishment at all the entrances. And it may be if you have a PA system to make announcements over the PA system. But what other efforts were undertaken by each of these establishments? And in fact, were any other efforts taken? That's the conclusion of my general remarks, and if we could go now to item number 1 on the agenda, the 7th and Grove Notice of Intent.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So this is a notice of intent for 7th and Grove Restaurant and Bar located at 1930 East 7th Avenue. The circumstances giving rise to these proceedings occurred on December 19th, 2020 and January 10th, 2021. And are detailed in the Notice of Intent dated January 13th, 2021, which can be found at tab 1 of your materials. The city will present evidence and testimony that 7th and Grove received information and education on mask requirements, that 7th and Grove received warnings for noncompliance, and that after receiving such warnings, employees were observed not wearing face coverings when not social distancing, and patrons were without face coverings while congregating around the bar and other open areas. Patrons were again without face coverings while congregating at the bar and open areas on the January 10th, 2021 date. I would now ask Kamaria Pettis-Mackel to come forward for presentation of the inspector's testimony. I apologize. That was actually item 2, so 7th and Grove, and I apologize for taking them out of order, but
Do you want to start, let's go with
Were your
Purple
fac-
Heart Bar and Lounge.
What were your facts applicable to? Number 2?
yes.
So is it,
I'm sorry. The general comments were applicable to both, so I can,
Okay, then we start with 1 in order.
so the first item is for Purple Heart. The violations at Purple Heart occurred on December 18th, 2020 and January 8th, 2021, and are detailed in the notice of intent dated January 13th, 2021, which again is behind tab 1. Purple Heart received warnings for noncompliance, and after receiving such warnings, their employees were observed not wearing face coverings when not social distancing. That was on December 18th of 2020. The employees were again observed not wearing face coverings, and patrons were standing, not seated at the bar, and congregating in open spaces while not wearing face coverings on January 8th of 2021. And I would now ask Kamaria Pettis-Mackel to come forward for presentation of the testimony and evidence.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
just as a point of order, and if some of the witnesses are up in the legal conference room, which it looks like they might be, when they come to speak, if they could come, each one, obviously I want them to stay 6 foot apart, but when they come up to speak or testify, if they could come closer to the camera as opposed to staying back there on the conference table, that would be helpful, because it's a big wide shot, as everybody can see, and it's a little hard to see. So that would just be a request.
And was everybody sworn in? Now, let's swear everybody in all at once in the conference room and here, if you could raise your right hand.
Mr. Chairman, if we can have everybody so they could be seen.
Yes, if we could,
Everybody stand up, stand up.
so we can see everybody.
Yep, a little bit to the left.
All right, raise your right hand and we'll swear you in if you're going to speak.
Do you
Do you swear affirm you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I do.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Good morning, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. I'd like to first call as a witness Inspector Chris Freeman.
All right, are you the gentleman at front, sir? Yeah, very good.
Mr. Freeman, can you please introduce yourself to City Council?
My name is Chris Freeman. I work for the City of Tampa in the Code Enforcement Department.
Inspector Freeman, I'd like to draw your attention to December 18th of 2020. Were you working on December 18th, 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you describe to City Council, did you respond on that date to an address located at 1811 North 15th Street, also known as Purple Heart Bar Lounge?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were your observations that you had when you responded on December 18th of 2020?
Okay, the bar is not a large bar, probably the size, double the size of this conference room. And immediately when you walk in, I observed patrons standing without wearing masks. I saw an employee standing, 2 employees standing without masks. When I went to take my picture, they quickly put their masks on, and I would say probably 80% of the people there were wearing their masks.
When you made your observations, Inspector Freeman, what did you do as a result of the observations you made?
We met with the management, issued a citation for the fact that they didn't have proper signage, which is required under the order, and for employees and patrons not wearing masks.
I just want to elaborate more on what you just said. You testified that you did not see the proper signage regarding the face mask requirement at the establishment?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And after you mentioned that after you made your observations, you gave a citation. Did you speak with the supervisor or a manager at the time that you issued the citation?
Yes, ma'am, we met just outside the doors, and again, we reiterated what's required under the order. We did give them signage, and we also gave them several quantities of masks.
While you were inside of the establishment on December 18th, did you hear any announcements on the PA system, if they had anything, or loud announcements from staff regarding the requirement to put on face masks for the patrons?
No, ma'am.
Did you see any of the staff members walk around the establishment on December 18th to tell people to put on masks if they weren't wearing any?
No, ma'am.
Did you see any patrons who were not wearing masks be removed by security of the establishment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next, I'd like to call from the city Inspector Barbara Riley.
Chris, will you go sit in Barbara's chair?
Yes?
Are we going to hear from all the city witnesses first before we ask questions, or can we interject on each witness if we have questions?
Just to keep it smooth, we should listen to everybody. It's only 2 officers.
Okay, I'm just asking, sir.
May I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Inspector Riley, can you please introduce yourself for the record?
Hi, yes, my name is Barbara Riley. I'm a certified code inspector for City of Tampa.
Officer Inspector Riley, on January 8th, 2020, were you working on that day?
Yes.
I'd like to draw your attention. Did you respond to the property located at 1811 North 15th Street, also known as Purple Heart Lounge?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you, if any, observations did you make when you responded to the Purple Heart Lounge on January 8th of 2021?
When we entered the establishment, we observed patrons not wearing masks, congregating around the bar, and employees not wearing masks.
I'd like to draw your attention to photographs. This is dated, for the record, January 8th of 2021. Do you recognize that photograph, or does that fairly and accurately represent your observations that you made on January 8th?
We cannot see the photograph.
We cannot see the photograph.
Yes, we can see it now. Can you
Okay.
see that, Barbara?
Yes, I do. Yes, that was a photo taken January 8th.
Also, for the record, another photograph dated January 8th, 2021. Can you describe to City Council, even though it's...
There are several people standing around the bar. It was very congregated inside. They were not wearing masks.
Officer, Inspector Riley, after you made your observations, what did you do?
A citation was issued and it was given to the bar manager.
On January 8th of 2021, did you see any signage posted on the property?
I do not recall, ma'am.
Did you hear any announcements throughout the establishment for the requirement of patrons to wear a face mask?
No, ma'am.
And did you see any staff members?
She's saying January 8th.
Did you see any staff members walking around handing out masks to those individuals not wearing any?
No, ma'am.
While you were at the location on January 8th of 2021, did you observe any security remove the patrons who were not wearing face masks?
No, ma'am.
I have no further questions for the witnesses.
Do we have any other code officers, or those are the 2?
Just those 2 for that.
Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Freeman, what are the policies when you come on a scene at a bar? What is the protocol?
At this point, we were going straight to issuing citations because we've been at these establishments multiple times, trying to educate them. And, in the process of trying to educate We let them know that this day was coming, that citations were going to start being issued. So once we got to that point, sir, where we're not getting compliance with the order, we started issuing citations immediate in their instant.
Okay, so multiple times at the scene, multiple chances to correct behavior. Now, after issuing a citation, is there a policy or after to where before you leave that the establishment make an announcement to the patrons, or a security alerted to have the DJ stop to where an announcement is made? What is the protocol after you give the citations to the business owner or the management?
Okay, so in this particular scenario, when we walked in, the majority of the people are very aware of the order, they're just not following it. So when we walk in to start taking photographs, especially the management or the staff working there, they're immediately starting to put their masks on at that point.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Dingfelder. Councilman Dingfelder, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Inspector, can you give us a little more detail as related to this particular club, Purple Heart? You testified that you were there on December 18th of 2020, and I guess and actually issued the subject citation. Were you specifically had you specifically been at this club previously, doing training and giving warnings at this club?
At this club, I cannot give you a definite answer, a yes or no. I would have to revert to a spreadsheet, and I just don't have that in my presence. But me, myself, I cannot give you a definitive answer that I've been there before.
That's something that you can come up with on your computer fairly easily?
The department has that information. Just say the department has that information.
The department I work for should have the information. It's given nightly.
I'm talking about as related to this hearing. Is that something you can come up with, within the next 10, 15 minutes while we move on?
Right, there's one.
Sir, I would have to start making phone calls.
There's one.
All right. And the same question to the young lady, Inspector.
I know they were educated because we had written them a citation on December 18th, so when we went back, they had already been educated.
Okay. So my question is, at any time prior to January 8th, 2021, had you personally been involved at the Purple Heart in terms of educating or
Yes,
I'm sorry?
sir, I have. Yes, sir.
You had?
Yes.
Okay. And can you recollect any of the specifics of that education or warnings prior to January 8th?
Prior to January 8th, we were there on December 18th when we issued the first citation, so they were well aware of the criteria and the executive order.
Were you there on December 18th?
Yes, I was.
Okay. That was my question. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And real quick to the officers, did you see a difference from December 18, 2020 to January 8, 2021? Did they come into any type of compliance, make any efforts? Because the pictures that I see here in the packet, I believe the evidence photos are from January 8th. So you've already visited at this point. Did you see any difference? Employees behind the bar start wearing masks? Anything? I mean, did they make any kind of effort? From the first to the second citation, I'm asking.
Whether or not they made an effort, I don't know, but they were definitely in violation again.
Because I'm looking here at the photo from December 18th, and it shows one of the bartenders without a mask, another employee behind or in the kitchen without a mask, or the mask pulled down.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes?
Just for clarification, again, I apologize. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle for the record. The photographs that are in section 6 of your binder on December 18th, we had just learned are not for this establishment. That's why I did not show them. We had just learned that. That's why I did not put it on the wolf. But the photographs for January 8th, 2021 are the correct photographs that are in your binder, section 6, that I also displayed on the wolf. And then just to clarify for the record, Inspector Freeman did testify that the education component was was given to the establishment on December 18th of 2020. I just want to clarify that for the record. There seems to be some confusion on
But
that.
he made a statement that education was given numerous times before the 18th. So in relation to Mr. Dingfelder's question, there should be, anytime an officer goes on the scene, there should be a log or something put in the computer automatically how many times we've been there. So to Mr. Dingfelder's question, we should be able to get on that MDT if code is using that system that the police department does, to be able to click how many times we went to that establishment.
Respectfully, Councilman Goods, code enforcement operates in a different system from Tampa Police Department. So their spreadsheet, they have multiple spreadsheets on their enforcement efforts. And again, the city's position is that the establishment received the education component on both dates, first primarily beginning December 18th, 2020 and January 8th of 2021.
At that time, were we at 100%?
It was at 100%, but they, as we've presented at previous hearings, they still have to comply with the orders of the county and with the city regarding social distancing and face mask requirements.
Thank you.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Let's just clarify so the record's totally clear, Counselor. In regard to those photographs, which ones, because I'm sure all of us looked at them, which ones are we supposed to disregard as not being this establishment? I think the dates appear to be on the photographs, but you're saying it was the wrong establishment. Which one?
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Just to clarify again, it's the photographs dated December 18th in Section 6 of the binder are not the correct photographs for that establishment. And if I may, since I still have time on my presentation, can I ask a question of Keith O'Connor?
Go ahead.
Mr. O'Connor, can you first introduce yourself for the record?
And be sworn, please.
He was previously
Oh, he was?
sworn?
Thank you.
Yes.
Keith O'Connor, City of Tampa, Manager of Neighborhood Enhancement.
Mr. O'Connor, can you please inform City Council, what was the date that Purple Heart opened?
From what I understand, the opening night was December 18th.
And that was the first time that you were able, your code officers were able to go out to the establishment?
Correct.
I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. All right, does that conclude everything, ma'am? Very good. Next, we'll go to the respondent's cross-examination of city witnesses, should the respondent choose to do so. Now is your opportunity. If you're at the kiosk, please state your name, sir.
My name is Mike Nelson. I'm the attorney for Mr. Keith Neurotis, who owns the Purple Heart. I'm also part owner of the building that I'm the landlord as well. So I guess I'm here in two capacities.
Sir, did you raise your right hand when we swore you in?
I wasn't going to provide any testimony. Did you want me to swear in any way? I'm just here in a capacity as an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, as the attorney, yes, you would have to, just to be safe, sir, just to keep the record clean.
Okay.
All right. If we could swear him in.
Do you swear or affirm you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go ahead, sir.
And Counselor, will your
Yes, sir.
client be testifying as well?
He will, and he was
he was
sworn.
sworn
This
in.
is
He was
Mr.
sworn
Keith
in.
Neurotis. He did take the oath.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Just have a couple just very quick questions. I'd like to talk to Mr. Is it O'Connor? Is the head of code enforcement? Was he the fellow that just testified?
That was the last gentleman that spoke, yes. I believe he's coming up to the chair. There he is with the mask.
It's your understanding, Mr. O'Connor, that opening night for this club was December 18th of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
The counselor earlier, the first attorney, I forget her name, that came up and spoke first, said that all the clubs were given warning. How did you give a club, or go into a club that was never opened, a warning? And could you state when, prior to December 18th, and specifically to who, you gave the warning?
That was a general statement. We've been giving warnings to all the clubs in Ybor every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night for months now. So every club that was open would have received a warning.
So you yourself have no personal knowledge to giving any employee or corporate officer of this particular club a warning prior to the very day you issued the first citation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Has there been a change in the last 7 days regarding enforcement? Have you advised clubs that you would no longer not be giving tickets if people were standing in the dance floor?
No, that was a misunderstanding that we had to excuse me, that we had to deal with. The dance floors are to be closed, but if the only violation is a dance floor violation where people are wearing masks, but they're utilizing the dance floor, that would be a warning. That shows us that they're trying to adhere to the rules, but they let people on the dance floor. We would give them a warning.
But that's a change that has occurred in the last 7 days or so?
It's not a change. It's an evolution of our checks. There was a club that had a citation issued with dance floor, everyone on the dance floor that had a mask on.
Okay, so
that's what brought that up.
Okay, so the rules are evolving as they're being enforced and have so evolved in the last 7 days. Is that correct?
No, I'm not saying the rules are evolving. I'm saying the discretion of the officers. Every club is different. Every situation is different, depending on the number of patrons, the number of violations. If it's just one violation, just like with all the clubs, it's not a flagrant disregard for multiple rules. We give warnings. We don't cite.
Does code enforcement operate citywide?
Yes.
And you operate in New Tampa as well as South Tampa?
Correct.
How many clubs have been cited in New Tampa for mask violations?
I don't think any.
How many clubs have been inspected in New Tampa for mask violations?
There's been multiple inspections throughout the city. A lot of it is complaint driven. Most of our complaints come in from the entertainment district.
Was there a complaint prior to my client being open on December 18th about my client?
No.
Okay. And yet an inspection was given to my client on December 18th. Is that correct?
Correct. We inspect all the clubs in Ybor. They're right next to each other, and they make their way through the strip.
Okay, so without complaint, all clubs in Ybor are inspected, but yet in New Tampa, am I correct in saying that without a complaint, they're not inspected?
In New Tampa, that would be correct.
Okay, along Kennedy Avenue, are those clubs, or down Mabry Avenue, are those clubs inspected without a complaint?
Yes.
They are inspected or not?
They are.
How many clubs along down Mabry Avenue have been cited for violations?
I'd have to look at the spreadsheet to see.
Am I correct in saying that if you go into a restaurant, I know these are bars we're talking about, but if I sit down to have a meal and start eating the meal, I take my mask off as I'm chewing my food. Am I required to replace my mask as I chew, or I can leave my mask off the entire meal?
Once you're seated, you can remove your mask for the while you're seated.
If I have a drink and I buy a drink at a bar and I'm seated and I have a sip of the drink, am I required to replace my mask as I continue drinking, or I can leave my mask off the entire time I have a drink?
Once you're seated, you can take your mask off at a restaurant, whether you're actively eating or drinking, the entire time you're seated.
Okay, not a restaurant, but at a bar. Is the bar rule different than the restaurant rule in the sense that once I'm engaged in drinking, I must put my mask back on in between sips, or I can leave it off the entire time.
The order references whether you're seated or not actively drinking or eating. Once you sit down, you can take your mask off. The tables are 6 feet apart. You're with your party that you came there with, and you take the mask off while you're dining.
Forget dining. If I'm drinking at a bar, seated, can I leave my mask off the entire time, or does the mask have to go back on between sips?
You can leave it off the entire time you're seated at the bar.
And if I then stand with a drink in my hand, then I'm in violation of the order.
Correct.
All right. One of the officers earlier said about 80% of the patrons at my client's establishment were wearing masks. So I guess 20% were not. Was there any kind of percentage given to how many were drinking? In other words, how many had drinks currently engaged in the act of drinking that had their mask down?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Was was Miss Riley Freeman there? Do you know? Well, I would just pass.
Riley, they were both there.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you very much, officer. I would like to ask Ms. Freeman questions if I'm entitled.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
This is, I don't see Miss Riley Freeman, or is that a man?
This is Riley.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Is there you, sir, were at the club on the 18th?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you also at the club on January 8th?
No, I was not.
Was one of the officers there on January 8th?
I was, sir.
There, okay, thank you. What was your name, ma'am?
Barbara Riley?
Miss Riley. Is it your testimony that the signs that you delivered in December were not placed on immediately upon your handing the signs to my client?
I do not recall, sir.
Okay. Do you have any pictures that you took yourself on January 8th?
We do have pictures. I did not take the pictures, but we do have pictures of that evening.
Okay. And the one, was there an employee on January 8th that was not wearing a mask?
Yes.
And was that fella a bar back who had just come from the back and was delivering bottles up front? Do you know?
I don't know, sir.
Was there any questioning of that bar back as to why he was not wearing a mask, or you simply take a picture of him and that's the reason for the violation?
It was one of the reasons for the violation. There were several patrons not wearing masks as well, and we did not question Barback.
Were those patrons drinking? Do you know if those patrons were drinking, ma'am?
I don't.
Okay. Were you at all times treated respectfully and courteously by my client?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
Councilman.
All right.
Question?
Go ahead, Councilman Goods.
That is the bar owner there, sir?
Yes, this is my client, very fine young man, Keith.
Are you allowing him to speak, sir, or are you speaking for the club yourself?
If I can.
No, sir, I would love for him. I am going to have him present testimony.
Okay, I'll wait till after his testimony. I have a question for him.
Thank you.
Kamaria Pettis-Malco from the City Attorney's Office. If I may quickly just redirect Mr. O'Connor, please. Mr. O'Connor, during your enforcement of the Hillsborough County and the City of Tampa's ordinance regarding face masks, are those complaint-driven inspections, or are you actively pursuing inspections of all businesses?
They're complaint-driven for the most part, but we do go to all the establishments throughout the city with rovers to try to capture everybody.
Regarding the face mask enforcement?
Correct.
I have no further questions.
Thank you very much.
Is there any recross by the respondent's attorney?
No, Your Honors.
Thank you.
All right, I saw I believe it was the owner who was ready to speak at the kiosk. The gentleman behind you, sir?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Would you please state your name and occupation for the record?
Keith Neurotis, owner of Purple Heart Bar Lounge and Grill.
And could you tell the city council when you first acquired that ownership?
October 17th is when I acquired the ownership.
And when did the club first open?
November 24th.
And prior to December 18th, were you visited or given any instructions by any city code enforcement officers regarding the mayor's order of August 2020?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And then on December 18th, I wonder if you could tell the city council what occurred.
So December 18th, officers came, the code enforcement officers came in, and they cited us for customers not wearing masks or standing up. They also said an employee didn't have a mask on, which all of my employees did have on masks, of my knowledge. I didn't see any photographs of my employees not having on masks. I did enforce it, especially after the fact. I had no idea really what was going on. I've only been open about a month and a half, so I was not told that this was happening. I was not warned at all, so I just took the citation.
And then did you in fact place signs about the bars you were instructed on December 18th or the following day?
Absolutely. After that, I was very unaware. I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, this is a new thing for me, and I did not want to have to be shut down. So I went above and beyond. I placed out signs for mask coverings. I did have my DJ announce on the PA system, and I walked through thoroughly myself and made sure my employees and that patrons had on masks.
Have you asked patrons to wear masks who were not wearing masks if they were not drinking?
Yes.
Okay. How about if they were standing and drinking and not wearing masks? Did you ask them to put the mask on?
Yes.
And did you hand out masks and do temperature tests
Yes.
at the front of the bar?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Have you ever been disrespectful or discourteous to any of the Tampa police?
No, sir.
Is it your or code enforcement officers? Have you ever been disrespectful to code enforcement officers?
No, sir.
Have you done everything you've been asked to do to your knowledge by the city for your business?
100%.
I'd have no further questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You allowing witnesses now, or?
Are there any, does he have any additional?
Are there any other witnesses, sir? Do you have any other witnesses?
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Councilman Good.
Yes, sir, to the bar owner.
Yes, sir.
I don't see him on the screen.
He's in front of the kiosk.
Okay, I got it now. So, my understanding, you took ownership of the bar in October. You had your first opening on November 24th, that's correct?
Yes, sir.
So from the time you took ownership of the bar to the time you opened, you had never heard of any executive orders within the city, the county, or anything pertaining to any type of rules, regulations as it relates to bars or masks in the city of Tampa or in Hillsborough County?
When I took ownership of the bar, the governor had just made bars 100% capacity, and that's what I knew when I took ownership. I didn't know of an executive order as far as mask coverings at that time, no.
So you're saying you opened a bar and you took ownership, didn't know anything, you knew about the governor's order, but know anything about the city ordinance of being an operational facility within the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County. And from the time that code enforcement to the second time, were you still not aware that there was a mandate for social distancing and masks?
The second time I was very aware, and I did go above and beyond to make sure I wouldn't get another citation, to make sure that everyone had on masks and employees had on masks.
So that leads to my last and final question. So obviously you're saying right now you didn't want to lead to another one citation, so obviously the previous 2 times you were not in compliance, correct?
The first time I wasn't in compliance.
So you weren't in compliance the second time too, correct?
I was in compliance the second time of my knowledge.
You're not, but when the inspectors came to the bar and notified you, was the bar in compliance?
The bar wasn't in compliance from what they told me.
I'm asking you, you were there, you were the manager, so the code
The
enforcement
bar
officers-
was in compliance.
Pardon me?
My bar was in compliance. Yes,
So you're
sir.
saying, well, code was there, they gave you a citation, and you were in compliance? Is that what you're telling me?
They gave me a citation because they said that a customer didn't have on a mask or they were standing. So that's not in compliance.
Okay, so obviously there was a violation inside the bar.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Councilman Miranda, yes, sir. And please unmute yourself.
I'm just here listening to the questioning and answers from Mr. Gooden, the owner of the establishment. And at the end, the owner of the establishment said he got a citation because one patron was not wearing a mask. Is it one patron that you got, only one patron you got it for? Or are there others, to your knowledge?
I'm not sure. It just said patrons not wearing masks. That's what the citation said.
Well, I know what the citation said, but what you said, I got the notice for violation because one patron was not wearing a mask. You can rewind and hear what you said, sir.
From my understanding, there was a patron that did not have on a mask, or it wasn't fully covered. It was kind of like how my
All right,
mask
so
is
then,
right now.
are you telling us, are you under the opinion that that's the reason you got the citation, because the one patron was not wearing a mask?
I'm assuming that's why the citation was written.
Making an assumption and not a fact, am I correct?
Yes. I'm assuming that's why.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Keith Neurotis?
Neurotis? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Neurotis, I want to clarify from your perspective, tell us what reasonable efforts that you made between the December 18th citation and the January 8th citation, and then I have one follow up on that.
I purchased over 1,000 masks. I had meetings with my staff about wearing masks, making sure that customers have on masks. Anything that code enforcement was asking, because it changed. It went from customers just must have on masks to now customers, another week would be customers must be seated. So it continued to change. So I would have weekly meetings with my staff to get them to understand the seriousness of it and to go above and beyond if they saw a customer without a mask. I also purchased signs that I put on each window of the establishment. Plus, they brought, after my, I think it was my second citation, they brought a sign to put up, and I put that sign up as well. I took temperature checks at the door. Everyone that came in the establishment got a mask before they even came in the establishment.
How many folks do you have working for you? I understand you're a fairly small establishment.
Yes, about 10.
And you gave them all pretty strict instructions?
Absolutely, yes.
Did you follow up on that? And I mean,
yes, we had weekly meetings. We would have a weekly meeting, and that would be a part of the meeting as far as, the temperature checks, as far as making sure that everyone got a mask. And like I said, it changed throughout the weeks as far as what was allowed and what wasn't allowed.
Didn't change, it evolved.
Yes. So 1 week, the first citation, from my understanding, everyone just had to have on mask.
Yeah.
Then it became everyone must be seated. So, we're trying to make these changes and trying to, we're having these meetings so everybody is aware of the change per what code enforcement is telling us. And we're trying to evolve as they're evolving with the changes. So I did everything in my power with my staff to make them aware of what had to be done in the establishment, and also informing the patrons as they came in. Even before they walked in the door, we would let them know, look, if you come in, you must have on a mask, and you must be seating. If you're sitting down, you can take your mask off.
Okay.
And then
All
it
right,
became you can't dance.
Thank you very much.
One more question to our legal counsel, to the city's legal counsel who's prosecuting this case.
She's standing by. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So I'm sorry to dwell on the photographs, but I went back and looked at the photos that were in section 6 of the documents you provided. The December 18th photos are date stamped with and those are, I thought you said those are the ones we should ignore, but they're date stamped with the address of this club. The January 8th photos are not date stamped at all with an address. So I just want to clarify for the record, which of those photos am I supposed to be ignoring or paying attention to? And if you have a witness to help me with that, that'd be fine too.
If I could just stipulate that the December 18th photos were in fact our club, so we can avoid having them, I guess, to have to prove it. We admit that's us.
State for the record who you are again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Nelson, I'm the attorney for Purple Heart Club as well as a property owner.
Okay, so the December 18th photos are your club?
It is, Your Honor, yes.
And then the January 8th photos?
Is that ours? Could we see that again? Because we did question whether that was us or not.
Well, it looks like the officer wants to chime in, Mr. Chairman. Maybe
Go ahead,
just
sir.
to clarify,
Code
this is an important issue to me.
Code enforcement. You're muted. Can we unmute? We couldn't hear the gentleman.
How about the speakerphone on the desk there? Did you push that button off?
It's not showing that they're muted on the screen, though.
Okay, go.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, just to clarify, the pictures,
Your name.
I'm sorry, sir, Chris Freeman, City of Tampa. Okay, the pictures you're referring to on the 18th belong to the Barter House next door. It's the same address, it's A. So it's 1811 North 15th Street, A. That's where the confusion was. Those pictures should not have been put into this case.
Okay, and then the January 8th photos, they don't have an address on them at all.
That's not yours? The December 18th isn't yours? No.
Okay, great.
So the gentleman at the dais is disagreeing. I'm getting more confused.
I guess I misspoke. I own the property, so I'm familiar with the bar next door as well. It's the Barter House Restaurant. I guess it wasn't this young man's club.
Okay, so officer, can you tell me about the January 8th? Are you testifying that even though they don't have a address stamp on them, Who took the
Well,
photos, and are we sure it's the right club?
Yes, sir. The photos submitted for January 8th are the Purple Heart Club.
Okay, and let me go back, let me go back to the witness then. Counselor, can he testify, has he seen the January 8th photos, and is that his club?
Can you put it up again?
Yes.
But any of those, none of those are.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, yes.
Just for clarification for the record, can Officer Inspector Riley please clarify that the photographs that were just displayed on the system, that those represent the photographs that were taken for Purple Heart on January 8th of 2021?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
Thank you.
All right. Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the owner witness, the club has music in it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there just a amplified sound music, or is there an actual DJ playing spinning wheels?
There's an actual DJ.
How often does the DJ make an announcement about the social distancing?
In our meetings, I told him every 20 minutes, make the announcement, and he did.
So you were there that night, citation was issued, every 20 minutes he was making an announcement. So while the code enforcement officers were there, that announcement was being made?
The announcement was being made every 20 minutes. I don't know if the announcement was made while the officer was actually inside the establishment, but it definitely was being made.
How long would you say the officers were there?
Every time that they've came in, they've probably been inside maybe 3 minutes. They come in, they walk to it's a very small establishment. They walk to the back, they walk back out, and it's 3 minutes max.
Thank you, sir. Code enforcement Riley or Freeman, you both were there. Can you tell me how long were you there at the club, and did you hear any announcements by the DJ in reference to social distancing and masks?
I do not recall hearing any announcements, and that night, we were probably there for about 10 minutes or more.
Ms. Freeman?
We're specifically talking about the 18th.
Either day. I'm just asking.
The 18th we spent more. I wasn't there on January, but I can attest that on the 18th we did spend ample time talking to management outside, code enforcement, law enforcement. And the only thing I can tell is, to add to this is, the clubs have been found not in violation because they're getting smarter. They're having spotters outside. Their doormen can clearly see us coming down the street to where they can go into clubs and make an announcement. We've seen that multiple times on both this establishment and other ones along 7th Avenue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Anything else? All right, we go to item 8. Yes?
Yes, that's what I was going to ask, if I may examine the
Yes,
witness.
ma'am. Go ahead.
Please, thank you again. Kamaria Pettis-Knuckle, again for the record from the City Attorney's Office. I'd like to ask a couple of questions of Mr., and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name, Neurotis? Neurotis. You testified that after the procedures you implemented, those were done after you received your first citation, correct?
Yes.
And you just heard testimony from Officer Riley that she didn't hear any announcements from the DJ while she was in your establishment about face mask requirements, correct?
Yes.
And you also heard, and it's correct that, isn't it true that none of the patrons, if they were not wearing masks, they were not removed from your establishment, correct?
Yes, they were removed.
While the inspector was there any patron removed on December 18th or January 8th, 2021, while the inspectors were present?
No, ma'am.
And you said that your DJ does have the ability to make the announcements, correct?
Yes.
At any point, did you turn on the lights of the establishments to again make a further announcement to ensure that there's compliance with the face mask?
Yes, we actually, there were.
On December, and I'm referring specifically to December 18th and January 8th of 2021.
Not on those dates, no.
Thank you. And it was your previous testimony that code enforcement was only at your establishment for 3 minutes, but yet Inspector Riley testified that she was there for at least 10 minutes on January 8th, and Inspector Freeman said he was with you on a lengthy amount of time to explain the rules to you, correct?
On what date?
On December 18th.
Outside the establishment on the 18th, yes.
City has no further questions for this witness.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions at all? If not, we can go to item number 9. If there's nothing there, I believe there might be public comment. Anything else? If not, we'll go to a public comment. Mr. Shelby, yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. Counselor and Mr. Naradis, if you can return to the main room, you can observe there. We'll have the kiosk sanitized, and then we'll be able to begin public comment.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Shelby, I wasn't here for your first hearing, so just give me a...
I'm sorry, sir.
I can't hear with the clapping. Thank you.
I was not here for the first hearings, and so I didn't see public comment on this sheet. This is a hearing for a violation, so explain to me why is there public comment, sir?
The answer is, sir, this is a public hearing. It's in the sense that we hadn't contemplated necessarily the public commenting on this. I noticed the public comment because it is a special call. General public comment is not on the agenda. If there are people here who are specific to want to speak to this item, my hope is that it is competent evidence. In other words, it's relevant and material to what you have in front of you, but we can't control that. This ultimately is going to be a final action of the city council. So that being the case, Florida statute's best practice in this case would be to allow the public to have the right to address it before you take final action. So I understand your question, and I initially the thought was that that the public would not have the opportunity, but upon reflection and looking at Florida statute's best practice for us would be to allow them the opportunity to speak. Mind you, again, the evidence, in order for you to base your decision, has to be competent, substantial evidence. And what that means is what you're about to hear from the public, in order for you to accept what they have to say and the weight you give it, has to be relevant and material. And of course, both sides will have the opportunity to address anything that the public says on their summation and rebuttal. So in best practice, sir, I believe it's in best interest to hear the public to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Just a little further on Councilman Good's comments. Mr. Shelby, just for argument's sake, if folks in the community have certain feelings about the governor's order, the mayor's order, the county's order, we didn't pass these orders. Okay, we're here on a very specific criteria of whether or not the orders were followed pursuant to the various codes that we're looking at today. But in regard to that big picture issue of whether or not people in the community think it's a good rule or good order or bad order or good law, what have you, is it fair to say that that's not really relevant to what we're doing here today?
That's exactly correct, sir. The question is relevancy. What you are asked to decide in this case is not the constitutionality of a governor's order. And frankly, if someone were to challenge it, they need to have two things. Number one is the proper forum to be able to do that, and the standing to be able to do that. And that is something that this council provides neither of.
So I just want to urge people,
Yes.
everybody has, Mr. Shelby says everybody has a right to speak, and that's fine. But I want to urge people not to waste your time and not to waste our time telling us about how you feel about the governor's order. We can't even opine how we feel about the governor's order or the mayor's order, because that's irrelevant. Okay, we're just operating under those orders. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Councilman. Thank you very much for bringing this up at this time, because there's certainly, you cannot consider evidence that's not relevant to your decision. And if you base that decision on irrelevant evidence, you jeopardize whatever decision you make. So that's a very good point, Councilman Dingfelder, and I appreciate you doing that. One other thing with regard to relevancy, the economics of it is not in your criteria. The economic effect of one thing or the other is not relevant to your decisions in this case. You are finders of fact, and what happens is when you make the findings of fact, you're presented with the law, the Code of Ordinances in this case, 27-318, and you apply those facts to the law to make your determination. Thank you.
Mr. Shelby, that's why I raised that question. I don't want a bunch of people here making public comment and don't have a relevancy to this person's case, and this hearing is based on a violation of the ordinance. So to have a bunch of people speaking on behalf of their opinion or my opinion about the mayor's order, or Mr. Dingfelder said, we may not agree with the order, we may not agree with a lot of things, but our relevancy today is to deal with the facts of what's being presented for this particular case per se. Is that not right?
Yes, and council, if it's and I believe it's wise for council to make that known to the public that the issues in this case are the facts as presented and the ordinance upon which you must apply, which is in this case 27-318. And if the public can address those issues, then they'd be able to apply relevant information that you may be able to use. Otherwise, it's not competent substantial evidence.
All right, I see 3 speakers at the kiosk. If you're going to speak, please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead and state your name, sir, and you may begin.
The clerk's office did not receive any written comments for this item.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, my name is Dr. Jamaris Glenn, and I am here with my partners, Kalia McDuffie and Dr. Von Lynn Wright, and we are the owners of 7th and Grove in Ybor City.
Wait, that's a completely separate
Separate
case.
They did. They just called us up. I'm not
No.
sure.
We're at Purple Heart Bar, Lounge and Grill, and then we'll go to 7th and Grove after.
So
If you could be seated, sir, that'll be the next hearing.
Yes, sir. It'll be the next one. We'll call you up. Do you have anybody else? Well, let's sanitize the lectern, and then we'll go to next public comment speaker. All right, next speaker. Yes, ma'am. Please raise your right hand and we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Mara Cruz Lance, and I'm here just on behalf of public comment, and I'm appalled at these ordinances. I know what the attorney said, whether the governor's executive order is relevant or the mayor's order is relevant, but here we have our mayor, Jane Castor, okay, not wearing a mask in public and not social distancing. And here she's asking the public to follow these rules. Also, I don't know that COVID is so smart that if you're seated and eating, you're okay not to wear the mask. But if you're standing at a bar drinking, it's not okay for you not to have a mask on. I think these rules and regulations are ridiculous. You are our city government, and you are responsible for making things relevant to the public. And I believe that Florida has no mask mandate, and our city does have a mask mandate, but I believe that it is overreaching in its in what it's doing to our citizens and to the hardest hit through COVID. And this is my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll sanitize the lectern and then we'll have the next speaker. Please raise your right hand and we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Christine Quinn. I am a U.S. citizen and a citizen of the state of Florida. I'm here in behalf of not quite understanding what this whole charade is all about. First of all, if these are ordinance violations, this should be in a court of law. I don't believe that any of the city councilmen or people that we have elected, are they judge, jury, and the attorneys? Do they know the law? Do they understand the law? They're supposed to be representing the best public health for our community, and this is not the best public health for our community. Our students are suffering, our businesses are suffering. This needs to be done in a court of law. We did not get enough time to prepare. We should have had a 24-hour notice. I guess it had to be in business hours, which it wasn't presented that way. So we need to continue this no matter what so that more people can come down here. The public can be more aware of what the city council, which is completely and totally overstepping their boundaries. They don't have the law behind them to even be doing this against a businessman. We are having sex trafficking, rapes, murders, all kinds of other things going on in our community and the safety of our children getting back to school. And you're worried about if one person was standing and didn't have a mask or someone was sitting. This has got to be the most intelligent virus that has ever gone around if it knows when someone is sitting and someone is standing and somebody is eating or has a mask on. And just to be clear, I am OSHA certified in mask mandates, and the city would have to have a comprehensive written plan for mask mandates. The city would have to make sure that every employee went to a doctor, had a physical, that those masks were fitted, would be a the N95. They'd have to be fitted and changed every time they touched them. They would also have to have a comprehensive log. At every time that the employee was mandated to wear that mask, they would have to take their oximeter, have them sign it and initial the time and the date, and then every 30 minutes check their oxygen level. If it drops below 91, that can put someone in severe danger of organ failure. I have 139 pages of why masks are so dangerous and why employees should not be mandating masks without knowledge, without doctor's permission, and without monitoring each individual employee as they wear that mask. I want to know, is the city council doing that? Is the mayor doing that? Are the police officers, city council, all of the city employees, trash collectors, everyone, have they sat down and gone through this 139-page mandate of what health, safety, and risk involved in wearing a mask? Oxygen restriction is not good for the health. That's my comment. People need to go look it up. It's the OSHA Act of 1970. It's very specific. I think that everybody needs to be aware of it and understand the dangers of wearing a mask. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, before you leave, ma'am, just to confirm, there was a question as to whether you were sworn. Were you sworn in?
Yes,
before
she
you
was.
began
She was.
speaking?
Yes.
That's
yes,
what
yes.
I
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you could raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
All right.
Do you swear or affirm you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Okay, my name is Jason Kimball, and I honestly can't believe we've arrived at this point. I just want to start off by remarking on some of the comments from the City Council Attorney, Martin Shelby. It's outrageous, honestly, the comments that he made prefacing this public comment. You guys are all elected officials, so what you have to take into consideration is how your constituents feel and how we expect you to represent us. And this attempt to overstep your authority is outrageous. The public doesn't support it. You guys are bringing attention on yourselves from people who never knew when the city council met, who the city council members are. You guys are bringing all of the scrutiny and attention on yourselves because the public does not agree with what you are doing. These businesses, they can post a sign saying, hey, please wear a mask. They can also assume that anybody not wearing a mask has an exemption. What you guys are trying to do to these businesses that are out there employing people, trying to survive, is outrageous. I don't know who agrees with it. I'm sure there's some, but no one believes that you should be able to force these guys to comply with these mandates or shut down permanently. They're done. I understand that you're not technically shutting them down. You're just making it so they can't make money and operate, and they end up just going bankrupt, going out of business. This is just a really sad state of affairs right here, and we're going to be paying close attention. All of the local freedom groups in our area are now paying close attention to what the city council is doing. And I would just strongly urge you guys to not be so heavy-handed with businesses. If you guys have your perspective and you want businesses to listen to you, then fine. Call a meeting with them, talk to them on the phone, do whatever you have to do to communicate your perspective. But for enforcing this on businesses is just wrong. In this, I don't know if you guys are trying to have a trial here. I don't know what, but this is something that a court should decide. And then if a business is found to be non-compliant, then you guys can go from there as far as enforcement actions go. But you guys should not be taking any enforcement actions against businesses that are just trying to serve the community and employ Tampa residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
So my name is Allie Marie, and I'm a founder of Moms for Freedom, a grassroots movement that works closely with other freedom groups and communities throughout the state. And I'm here in support of these small businesses that are here today and throughout Tampa that have been victims of your political games. It seems as though Mayor Castor and you, City Council, which are elected public servants who took an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution, are operating outside of your authority. See, when government operates outside the consent of the people, government becomes unjust. These people you see before you are not giving you consent to your overreach of business bias. Small businesses are the backbone of any city, and Tampa is no different. Using coercion, fear, and punishment like we are your subject and not your employers is not only unethical, but unconstitutional. You are using code enforcement that doesn't take into consideration the exemptions that exist, that are escorted by police, using taxpayer money to enforce unconstitutional executive orders, that which are not law, and only to small businesses in Ybor and Soho. So it seems as though there is some kind of unethical attack on small businesses and the people that use these small businesses in everyday life and around our communities. If you cannot or will not stand by your oath to uphold and protect the Constitution and do what is best for all the people in Tampa, then you need to kindly vacate your seat, and we will find other people to fill it for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next speaker. All right, please raise your right hand. We will swear you in, and you have 3 minutes to speak after you state your name. Yes, sir.
My name is Mike
Do you
Hayes.
swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Mike Hayes. I just have a couple comments. First of all, the comments before we came up to speak, I felt they're pathetic. The idea that you're just doing your job. It's okay to destroy a business. And trying to wash your hands of it, saying, well, this is what we've been told, so we have to do it. And the comments from the public are irrelevant. I think that was the exact word that was used. It's pretty pathetic. And I think you should be ashamed of yourself. And it's a disgrace to our city. The couple comments I want to make, I want to point out the fact Dr. Fauci himself said there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet. But it's not providing the perfect protection that people think it is, and often there are unintended consequences. Secondly, I want to point out that this is straight from the cdc.gov website. In 2018, quote, globally, tuberculosis is the leading cause of death by an infectious disease. In 2018, an estimated 10 million people became ill of tuberculosis and 1.5 million people died. Did we hear about any of that? Did we have masks? Were we shut down? Were schools shut down? Did you go around shutting down businesses? No, you didn't hear about it. Why? Because it's not about public health. It's about control, it's about power, and it's about money. And I think everybody knows that deep down. You also know that it's absurd to think that putting on a mask and walking into a restaurant and then sitting down is somehow going to protect you if you take the mask off once you sit down, and somehow it knows to not to be infectious, when you stand up, when you sit down. So we all know it's ridiculous. You know deep down it's ridiculous. These laws are ridiculous. I want to point out another thing. Some people may not be aware. Order of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners amending the wearing of protective face coverings order as previously amended on July 6, 2020 and August 14, 2020. It's on 9C. You can look it up. Persons for whom a face covering would cause impairment due to an existing health condition. No business operator or employee shall ask a person not wearing a face covering pursuant to the exemption to identify a specific health condition or supply documentation thereof. Nor shall any business operator or employee deny such a person admittance or service because he or she is not wearing a face covering. So I'd love to know if these violations, if you went up the code enforcement people, who are a disgrace and should be ashamed of themselves, if they walked up and asked, are you exempt? Are you exempt? So I highly doubt they asked that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker. All right, if you could raise your right hand, we'll swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Certainly, yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Please state your name, sir. You have 3 minutes.
David Williams. All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to just point out that there's more important things than for the city council to be looking at before this. This is silly. This is just silliness. No common sense whatsoever. COVID is really not that bad. We've learned a lot in the last year, and it's nothing but just a cold. A few days and we're over it. Some people will get sick, but most people, like 99.5%, survive without any difficulty. City council must use common sense when approaching some of these silly little mandates. these businesses and these bars have been warned, but do not fine the bars. The bars have complied with your request by making announcements, by handing out $5,000 worth of masks. As Mr. Nevada's mentioned, he bought over 1,000 masks at $5 a piece. That's a chunk, more than a small business can feasibly handle. If you're going to do any fines, fine the individual who's violating, not the business. Do not charge this business or any of these businesses that are on the agenda today, or any of the other businesses that may come under compliance problems in the future. Go after the individual and correct them, have them put on the mask. The bars have done, and the small businesses have done what they can do by making announcements. Otherwise, if they become the face mask enforcers, then they're disrupting the pleasure of the individual of their business at their business. And businesses don't want to do that. So instead of going after the business, find the individual or have them trying to correct their behavior. My recommendation is that you drop all charges today for all 4 of these on the agenda, and for all future, any other type of violations on any of this, for any of the small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a sense of how many
One more
folks
person after this,
are up
sir.
here?
One more person. Go ahead. Please raise your right hand. We'll swear you in, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, go
Thank
ahead.
you.
Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Vanessa Vasquez, and I am here as a concerned citizen of this city. It is truly appalling to see this procedure. This kangaroo court that you guys have set up here is ridiculous. And it's shameful to see that you guys are specifically weaponizing this COVID pandemic to target these small businesses in our community. And it personally feels like an attack on all of us when you attack our small businesses. So yes, all eyes are on you guys right now. We, the people of Tampa, are watching each and every one of you making these decisions. And we are appalled, and we will not stand for it. This is ridiculous, and I cannot believe it. It's truly sad to see that this is the state of affairs that we are in. Because these businesses do not want to police their customers, please reconsider. This is sad. This is unacceptable and unconstitutional, and you guys know it. Okay, search yourselves, search your hearts. To destroy the livelihoods of these business owners? For what? Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, if there's no other public comment at this time, if we can go to the respondents' rebuttal, and then we have the city's rebuttal, and this would conclude this hearing, and we can go to action and discussion. So the respondent first. Yes, sir.
Mike Nelson again. I guess I'm here in 2 capacities. As the attorney for Purple Heart and also landowner. The hearing or meeting started with the first city attorney telling us that all these people were warned. There is zero evidence that there was ever any warning. In fact, the evidence is the first time we heard from code enforcement is our first violation. That's December 18th. While there might not be a legal requirement to give a warning, fundamental fairness would require it, especially with dealing with a brand new business. Young man works hard, saves some money, buys a business. 3 weeks after he buys it, here comes the city and telling us that 80% of our patrons had masks, but 20% didn't. If 100% are drinking, then what? We got 20% of people with drinks, you know what I mean, that might be standing, you know. And now we're also hearing that, okay, it's okay to stand by the dance floor. It wasn't before. I'd never been in this particular bar when it was operating, but I think you can go into a lot of bars and find 20% of the people that don't have a mask on at any given time, especially when they're, you know, drinking and eating. Yes, some people were standing. It's a small club. If 2 or 3, you know, people, if 8 people, you know, drive in 2 cars and they all 8 walk into the club, it's hard to then, you know, socially separate them. Young man, is anybody tells you that he's been, you know, they haven't tried to work and haven't tried to comply and haven't tried to do the right thing with his life savings at stake here, that is incorrect. They're doing everything we can, and I would ask that you not impose any fine if there's some, I don't even know what the level of, you know, if we could pay a fine, I'll pay it, you know, but to close them is, you know, fundamentally just wrong. Did you want to say anything, Keith?
So pretty much I understand, you know, the law as far as, I just wanted to say that I did everything possible that I could. Every week got worse for me. I felt like I was harassed at some points. I did everything in my power to make sure that patrons were safe, that my employees were safe. As a new business owner, only in business roughly a little over 2 months, I was very overwhelmed with getting my business on track to be somewhat successful, and then got hit with the curveball of COVID, of course, and code enforcement. So trying to build structure, trying to do right by the law and the city, I did everything possible. I put the signs up, I made the announcements. You know, my employees, they probably hated me the last 2 months. Well, the last month, definitely. With the stress that I put them through so that we could stay in business. We're a small business. We only can house like 65 people in our establishment. So closing us down will be very damaging to me. I put my life savings into this. So it would damage me as a business owner. I'm a really small business. I can't put 600 people in my establishment. So all I ask is that you understand, as a small business owner that has put my life savings into this. My wife of 22 years had to deal with the stress that I had to bring home to my family of putting my life savings into this, to know that being shut down, it would domino affect us on losing everything. So I ask you to just, if you can dig deep down inside to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not a millionaire. I'm just trying to provide for my family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we go to the city's rebuttal at this point. Ms. Johnson-Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Susan Johnson-Velez, Senior Assistant City Attorney. I just wanted to address very briefly, because a couple of the folks in public comment talked about notice. So we did satisfy the notice requirements of 27-318. I just want to say that for the record. That requires to notify the AB license holder and the property owner, and those entities or persons were notified in accordance with the code for these hearings. I also wanted to clarify that your proceedings under 27-318, it's not a COVID regulation. It is, though, a health and sanitation, as I said in my earlier comments, a health and sanitation regulation, which every owner of an AB establishment must comply with in accordance with their alcoholic beverage approval. And that is what 27-318 gives you ability to address today and consider is the suspension of the AB approval for failing to comply with the requirements of those approvals. And so specifically to this case, the mask orders that are in place, both the city and the county, they're not moving targets. They are orders that have been in place for some number of months now, and the requirements have been the same for the duration of the order. And this is a fairly new establishment, I understand from the testimony, but we can, that's why we considered that first visit on December 18th as part of the education process for this fairly new establishment. But you heard the testimony of Inspector Freeman that he spent a considerable amount of time with management on that day, educating them and talking to them about the requirements, the requirement that you make the announcements and put the signage up and have masks available, make sure your employees are wearing masks. And so, again, Inspector Freeman testified and confirmed that fact. And yet, on January 8th of 2021, you had almost the identical violations that you had on December 18th, the day that the inspector spent a considerable amount of time with management, telling him that patrons are not allowed to congregate in the bar area or in open spaces within the establishment without a mask. And yet, on January 8th, you had the exact same violation as you did on December 18th in that regard. Similarly, on December 18th, there were employees that were observed not wearing masks, and despite the Inspector Freeman's education efforts on December 18th, you had employees, again, not wearing masks on January 8th of 2021. And so I think it's clear, and the city has established that despite the reasonable efforts that the city made to make the establishment aware of the mask requirements and the minimum requirements to be deemed to have made reasonable efforts, the establishment failed to make those reasonable efforts. And again, we're here again as a last resort. We don't bring these cases after a first citation. In fact, this is the second citation, and we only brought these cases to you after repeated violations, at least 2 violations. And so the city has proved that, and I believe the owner acknowledged that there were violations of the mask orders at his establishment, both on December 18th and on January 8th of 2021. And so because of that, due to that, we asked council to find that there were in fact violations or that the establishment failed to follow the health and sanitation regulations, and that they are therefore in violation of section 27-318 C1F. And we ask that the city consider, or the council consider suspending the ability to sell alcoholic beverages for 3 days for this establishment. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Goods?
Ms. Velez, this being my first hearing, I know we've had some hearings last week. I know I read that there was an order sent to the circuit judge in reference to our authority in reference to these cases, and I believe it came back that the judge said that we have the authority to do these cases, correct?
That is correct. There were what's called petitions for writ of prohibition filed by not this establishment, but several other establishments who are subject to these notices of intent. And the petitions sought to prohibit, or a declaration from the judge prohibiting council from holding these hearings, and in fact asking the judge to declare that city council was required to wait until the county court acted on the citations, which are the remedy is a fine in those cases, and the 3 separate divisions of the circuit court determined that city council was not precluded from holding these hearings, and that a predetermination, any type of predetermination by the courts, was not a prerequisite for council taking action under 27-318.
And the reason I asked that, I heard the public comment. I always listen to public comment when people talk about our authority and people talk about what we should and shouldn't do. I think a lot of council members up here are small business owners ourselves. And we understand the hurt and the crunch. My family is a small business. We have to wear masks at funeral home and graveside services and everything, so we have to comply as well because there are violations and we don't. I just want to make sure the public knows that this is not something that council just go out. This is an order that came from somewhere, so we're just a body here that has to be the, you hate to say, the enforcer of what the rule is and what's brought before us. So I just want to make sure that's clear that, you know, the process has already started by going to the circuit courts, and I guess they've denied that, saying that it needs to be handled here, and this body here, unfortunately, has to be the one to make a ruling on a violation, not public opinion, because I have my own opinion about masks and so, but I have to be in a situation to look at what the judges has ruled and what my duties are as far as it relates to the ordinance if they're violation committed. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that it came from the judge, that this body must act on these violations, correct?
That's correct, and you have the ability to act under Section 27318 of your code, which is a separate enforcement mechanism than the matters that are in front of the county court.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I briefly could state.
Mr. Shelby, the rebuttal period is over for the gentleman, correct?
It's my understanding.
Well, if you want to rebut the rebuttal of the rebuttal,
Just
go
one
ahead,
question,
sir.
just one statement. There was never a prior warning to this business. Maybe the other businesses had warning. So our first violation of December 18th is what they say is the warning. So we're here today on really one violation, the January. You're going to shut the business down for one violation. Just, I want the record to be clear about that. You can't give a guy a ticket on December 18th and say, oh, by the way, that's your warning. And then on January 18th, give him another one and say, okay, now here's your second. Thank you.
Councilman Dingfelder.
I believe
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question in regard to our standard of review, Mr. Shelby. As those of us who've practiced or served as jurors in criminal cases, you know, the standard of review is beyond a reasonable doubt. Have you, Mr. Shelby, have you or any other attorneys involved determined what our standard? Do we have a standard that we should be looking at the evidence, other than we know what the standard of evidence is competent and substantial evidence, but when we get to reviewing that evidence, should it be preponderance of the evidence or beyond a reasonable doubt or that sort of thing? I know people might think I'm splitting hairs, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of how we view that evidence. That's my question, Mr. Chairman, and then I do have a statement and a motion if you want it.
All right, after we close the public hearing, we'll take motions. Mr. Shelby, yes, sir.
Yes, well, again, this is in response to an action under Chapter 27, your Land Development Code, the circumstances under which somebody obtained the right to sell alcoholic beverages at a particular place of business establishment. And that is a quasi-judicial matter. This is not a court of law. This is not a criminal case. This is not a jury trial. And in fact, this is a mechanism that's in your code to be able to suspend or revoke the privilege that this board, or its previous board, but this body certainly has given to a location to be able to sell alcoholic beverages. So to answer your question, Councilman Dingfelder, this is a quasi-judicial matter, and the standard for review is a writ of certiorari to circuit court, and it would be, as in other quasi-judicial matters, the court is going to be looking for the notice and the opportunity to be heard, that due process was afforded, that the essential requirements of law have been met, and that the decision of this board, after reviewing the record, is based on competent and substantial evidence. So if you're going to make any findings of fact certainly would be appropriate to give that sort of determination to the circuit court. And that's the standard of review.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Ms. Johnson-Velez. For the members of the public, either watching or downstairs, who spoke out, can you just repeat what section of law this is and why it's relevant, and also where the executive orders came from and why they're applicable? And then could you also give examples in the past? I haven't been on council very long. Could you give examples in the past where maybe this law was invoked for other health reasons?
These hearings are brought pursuant to Land Development Code Section 27-318C1, which again authorizes City Council to, after a public hearing, to consider suspension of alcoholic beverage sales for cause. And the section, we're focusing on item F of the laundry list of items that council could consider suspension for cause. But that particular one, section F, is a failure to comply with any provisions of the health and sanitation ordinances of the city, the county, or the state after receiving reasonable notice. And so, again, because the mayor's and the county's executive orders were issued in response to a declared statewide public health emergency, they do have the force and effect of law and effectively our local health and sanitation regulations. And so council can consider failure to comply with those orders as a basis for suspension of alcoholic beverage sales for cause under 27-318.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but could you, and you haven't been back to the city very long either, but to be fair, but do you remember any other cases where this article has been invoked? Like, for example, and this is a hypothetical, but if a bar was overrun with cockroaches and rats, would that then process come before us? And I think in that case, it would not be political. The public would probably unanimously agree that it's not a good idea for a bar to have a health issue like that.
That's correct. That's the very type of health and sanitation regulation that council could take into consideration and that council could consider suspending if there was a failure to comply with the prohibition against having cockroaches running around in the kitchen. Yes, similarly to this. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. If there's no other further comments or questions, can we get a motion to close this public hearing? We have a motion to close from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Councilman Dingfelder, you mentioned a motion, sir? Or that you were going to make or wanted to make? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. In regard to the validity of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think we stated this very strongly last week when we had, I think, 2 cases. And we enforced in both cases. One of them, we enforced it, and the other one was a settlement, a voluntary settlement. But as a community, I think it's critical that we not lose sight of the fact that we are still in the middle of this pandemic. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but in the last couple of weeks, they were still, 500 new cases per day in the county, which is very, very high. But more importantly, when the gentleman says this disease is just like the flu, what's that expression? You're not entitled to your own facts. And the facts are that 500,000 people, as reported in the newspaper this past weekend, we are coming up on 500,000 people in this country are dead because of this pandemic. This is not the simple flu. 500,000 people is more, and I wish Councilman Vieira was here. He's our historian. That it's more than World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined in terms of Americans dead. Not only do we have a right to be enforcing this law, but we have an obligation to the community to make sure, and I think as Councilman Carlson a second ago pointed out, that this is about health, safety, and sanitation. And it wouldn't matter if we were talking about rats and roaches in the kitchen or a public health issue out in the bar area. This is important. It's important in every part of our community, whether or not it's bars, restaurants, family gatherings, etc. And we're not going into family gatherings and enforcing it, but we could urge people, and we should urge people, to make sure that we keep the masks on and the social distance until everybody gets their shots and we get control of this pandemic. All right, I'll get off that soapbox, but I think it's important for the community to hear that. This is why we're doing it. We don't want to shut bars down for a day. We don't want to be here doing this, but we also need compliance and we need cooperation in the community. Now, with that said, we have to go to each case individually. And it's the city staff and the city legal department's burden to present evidence to show violation, and specifically to show that the owner did not make reasonable efforts to meet the code. Last week, I felt there were 2 cases where the city met that burden. And today, in this case, I don't feel that's the case. And with all due respect to the staff and legal, who do a great job, I don't believe that the city, and it is the city's burden, I believe in this case, has met that. I think that the evidence is really contradictory here. At first, we were provided with photographs from December 18th, 2020, and then January 8th, 2021. And then we were advised that the December 18th photographs should be disregarded, and there was kind of confusion. Then staff said, oh yeah, we showed up and we trained all of these clubs prior to December 18th, including this club. We gave them training, we gave them information, we gave them warnings. But then as the hearing went on, the evidence showed that prior to December 18th, there's no evidence of anybody from the city visiting this particular club, because this particular club had only been open maybe less than a month. So there's a lot of contradictory evidence, and there's very firm evidence, I believe, from this gentleman who seems very sincere, who just took his family savings and opened up this club, that perhaps on the 18th, he either wasn't aware or wasn't doing as much as he should. But he testified very, very strongly, I believe, between the 18th and January 8th, which was his second alleged violation date and citation date, that he made all reasonable efforts, including handing out masks, taking temperature, having patrons removed, posting the appropriate signage, instructing his staff on numerous occasions, only 10 people on his staff, so it's not like he's got 100 staff people, to do all the right things. And in this case, and again, with all due respect to our staff and to our legal department, I don't believe that there's adequate evidence to enforce on this particular case. We have many more cases to go, and each case is going to rise and fall based upon the evidence that we hear, the competent, substantial evidence that we hear. But in this case, I don't believe there's an adequate factual predicate to support the city's allegations. I would move that in this case alone, that we dismiss the allegations and not enforce 27318 C1F.
Thank you very much.
If I
Mr.
can-
Shelby.
Yes, thank you. First of all, before we entertain a motion, could I just have a motion for the purposes of the record during the hearing to receive and file the documents and the evidence that's been...
Do we have a motion to receive and file all documents? We have a motion from Councilman Carlson, second from Councilman Goods. All in favor? Aye.
And finally, with regard to the motion, Councilman Dingfelder, I would request, consistent with 27318, that the finding be that there is no violation, rather than a dismissal. A dismissal is really not contemplated in the statute, in the code.
Would modify my motion slightly to state that there is no violation supported, that there is inadequate evidence to support a finding of a violation. I believe that all reasonable efforts were made by this particular establishment and the owner/manager. Thank you.
We have a second from Councilman Carlson, but we have Councilman Goods. Do you have a question or comment, sir? Discussion?
You know, I respect Mr. Dingfelder's motion. I have a few concerns. I believe that there are some evidential issues I do have some concerns with. But I do believe by the owner's own admission that there were some violations. Now, when you look at the owner saying there were maybe some technical violations, and you put on top of possible that our photographs, and when we talked about a log not being there, there's some other issues. I can see where you're going, Mr. Dingfelder. And I don't know, Mr. Shelby, if you can answer this question. No violation. Is it that staff is asking for 3 days? Is it that we still could fine or limit that number down to a lesser day, or oppose a fine versus the recommendation of staff for the 3 days?
The answer to that question, sir, is this is bifurcated. It's a two-stage process. If in fact you find, and putting aside the motion that's on the floor, if in fact, for purpose of discussion, if you do find that there's a violation and the council does make that finding, then you go into the penalty phase. Your penalty phase for a first violation, I could review it with you more in full, but it's not appropriate at this time, but it could be from 0 to 30 days. The penalty could be whatever council makes, or no penalty is an option as well, or 0 up to 30 days. But that is an option of council dependent on what its motion and what its action is. And again, you have a motion on the floor. It was seconded, was it not, Mr.?
Yes, it was seconded. So if the motion fails, then we make a new motion. But if this motion passes, then the point is moot for this case.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Citro, yes, sir.
I understand Councilman Dingfelder's opinion, but I have pictures, and if the owner gave all the warnings, I still have 2 pictures here of employees that aren't wearing masks. As a council person said last week, there may have been announcements saying you need to wear masks. But if I'm an employer and I have employees that aren't wearing masks, that's a different subject. There's one common denominator here in all of these cases, and that's alcohol. Did the owner one time say, I will no longer serve alcohol until you put a mask on?
I did, by the way. Once again,
sorry.
The public hearing is closed.
So in my opinion, excuse me, with these pictures here showing the employees not wearing masks, I'm saying that there is a violation.
Sir, those pictures that you see, they're not my employees.
The public hearing is closed. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Councilman Carlson.
Yes, Councilman Dingfelder said it much more eloquently than I will or would have. But, you know, if you look at last week, I'm not afraid to uphold these rules even though we didn't put them in place because we have to ultimately be consistent and protect the health and safety of our community. And in other categories and other cases, we would have done that, and the public wants us to uphold the law. I don't think we can be selective about which laws we want to support and which ones we don't based on our political beliefs. We have to support the laws that are there, or the public can act to change them. And again, we didn't put these laws in place or these rules in place. But in this particular case, I think the evidence is thin. I think that there is an unusual circumstance here that it's a new business owner and a new bar, and I'm not convinced by the evidence of the person being trained in advance. Yes, it's an obligation of new businesses to know what the rules are, but we're working in a very weird environment right now, and so I feel like in this case they should have had more time and another time. I'm also concerned about the mix-up of the evidence, and that there were pictures that were not from this bar, and it's confusing about what it all is. Although I appreciate and respect the staff that have done this and voted with them last week, I would vote against this time, but also with the caveat that if this bar comes back again, I would be the first to make a motion to take away their license for 30 days. So I will be supporting this motion, which is not to find that they're in violation. Thank you.
All right, and before we go to a vote, I'm going to support the motion of no violation that was stated eloquently by Councilman Dingfelder, and also taking into consideration this is a new business. This is somebody that's put their life savings into this. This is someone that, as the evidence has shown, it's a very limited period between starting the business, being cited, having the violation, and then coming here with within just a few months. These are unprecedented times. We have not lived through a pandemic. Last one was in the teens, the 1920s. It's been over a century. So it's uncharted territory in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, people are just trying to survive. I come from a family of small business people, from my grandfather, my parents, whatever it is not easy. And this last year, it has been extremely difficult because it's literally been every obstacle that can be thrown at someone has been thrown at someone. I mentioned the other day, not everyone qualified for PPP. Not everybody had a savings to keep their businesses afloat. Many businesses closed. I know that because I've seen it or I read about it. Each and every day, it's somebody new that's affected by this pandemic. I appreciate the service done by our code enforcement officers in the city, but we take this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think this gentleman should be cited. His business should not be cited, and I think the evidence proves that. So having said that, if there's no other further comment, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you much, Mr. Chairman. I will not be supporting the motion. Let me tell you why. First of all, it's based on the facts of the orders that were signed by the mayor and others in the county and things of that nature. It's not based on small business or big business or money people or people with no money or whether you have a savings or you do not have a savings. That is not part of any investigatory or any section of the law, and you cannot take that into evidence that it's because it's a small business, we're going to do something different. And I understand the gentleman's predicament. I understand what he's done. I understand that he's put everything he had into the business. That does not give a reasonable explanation according to the facts of the ordinance. It's personal. So when you look at, when you look at the COVID-19, more people have died than during World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam conflict. Never called a war. Secondly, when you look at that, let me put it into real text. Greater than all the population of the state of Florida, which is over 23, 24 million, have been infected by this disease. How many have died? Supposing 500,000? That's every citizen in the city of Tampa, in the city of Plant City, and Temple Terrace have vanished. That's what you're looking at. When is this going to change? It's very difficult to sit here and do this. When these things happen, you either try to stop or you don't. And were the pictures shown not correctly? Yes, they were. That was at the beginning of this whole thing. The city admitted to that. They didn't hide it. They said it was an error. They stated very clearly. When you go back and continue to look at this, how often do we have to sit? Not that all of them are going to be found guilty. I hope not. But the evidence that was put up here is not the evidence according to the section of law, the section of which was signed and put into effect sometime back. So in 2018, if I recall the total situation of this case, the city did go in and give this gentleman first violation. Then January 8th of 21 is when the violation occurred again. That's when he was cited. He wasn't cited twice. If I recall, if not, the section would have read violation of 2018 of 2000. We're not listening to the 2018-2000 violation because never one given. The violation occurred on January the 8th of 21, not on 12/18 of 20. So therefore, there was an attempt to understand what the facts were coming if you violated it again. So I'm not saying that the gentleman misled us. I'm saying that he made an error. And these are the things that we're looking at. And I'm just cognizant to the fact that the city has treated all of Ybor City, Soho, and I would imagine other areas of town that we've never asked them where they've been. But I would imagine that every individual in this city who has a liquor license, a restaurant, a bar, a hotel, sooner or later, because there's a lot of thousands of are going to get. I am here to help you. I want to make sure that everybody's got a mask on, just like the IRS. So what I'm saying is, we have to understand that in 2018, he was not cited with a violation. He was cited with, we're here to tell you not to do it again. Maybe that wasn't carried on in that fashion. Maybe it was a notice that just said, here's your first notice. Maybe it wasn't thoroughly explained. But you really have to thoroughly explain it. And let's talk about a new business. When you get a driver's license, do they tell you, yeah, you got a driver's license, but you got to have the insurance before you can go drive. You got another thing. This business, like all businesses, have to understand what business they're in. It's up to them to understand what the laws are, not up to us. It's up to the individual that go in business, especially in the alcohol business, what the facts of the laws are. Not up to us to say what the facts are. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. You've made your motion, sir. Yes, sir?
Yep, just one quick follow-up, and I promise it'll be quick. In response to Councilman Citro and Councilman Goods, who both addressed the photographs. Again, with all due respect to staff, we were told by legal staff to disregard the December 18th photographs. The December 18th photographs were very clear. They showed a bartender. Who didn't have a mask on. But then we were told to disregard those because that was the club next door. It happens to have the same address, so that's why it showed up with the same address on there. The next set of photographs that we were told we could look at were January 8th. And those photographs, I don't know if you guys could see them better than I could, but they are extremely difficult to discern anything. I see a lot of purple and pink and bodies. I can't see who they are. I can't see what they're doing, where they're standing, or I get no frame of reference whatsoever. So if we're relying on those photographs, again, I would say they're extremely, I don't believe they meet the level of competent, substantial evidence that I think we were instructed by Mr. Shelby to rely on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, we respond to Mr. Dingfelder.
Okay.
I'm not relying on the photographs. I'm relying on the actual owner's testimony, his statements. I'm relying on the fact that code was there and actually saw the violations. So the picture is not totally for me, but I relied on what the actual bar owner said in his statements. His statements was clear. There was a violation. As Mr. Miranda stated, he was instructed the first time by Mr. Freeman when he had a lengthy conversation as it relates to what the procedures of the COVID-19 executive orders were. Thirdly, and I'm not a naive guy. I've been around the block a long time, for 26 years. And Mr. Miranda said it perfectly. When you deal with alcohol, and you're a business owner with alcohol, there comes a lot of responsibility with alcohol. And bar owners know do's and don'ts about alcohol. And I'm not saying the young man is not being truthful. All I'm saying is that as a person who's been around a long, long time, who's given citations and done things in bars, work bars and establishments, I know better to know that rules and regulations had to be addressed and have been told to probably employees, and I'm sure. So I'm not relying on just the evidence of the photographs. I'm relying on the own testimony of the bar owner. But I would say, and that's why I asked the show the question, what is the regulations of this council to impose sanctions? Now, I do agree he is a young owner, and I do agree that we don't want to hurt small business, but, you know, my family's a small business, and we have to have mandates that are required, and we have to follow those mandates regardless. Regardless of, they can't be mistakes, because lives are at stake in our business when we make them. Again, that's why I asked that question. I will not be supporting the motion unless we go to a second term, and then we can look at some smaller sanctions for the owner, because I do think that there are a few caveats to the photographs and some other evidential things. But I think for the most part, I think the city has proven that case because of the bar owner's own admission in his statements. Thank you, sir.
Councilman Citro?
Thank you very much. Being a small business owner myself, I have to have continuing education. I have to pass certain rules and regulations to have my license, not only for my personal self, but for the business that I own. It's not for me to go find them out. It's mandatory from the state that I have to adhere to them. Councilman Dingfelder, I can see through these pictures, even though you say they're bad, I can still see two bartenders, one that clearly has a tip jar next to him that says tips on it, and the other one that is behind the bar. Councilman Dingfelder, I don't know if you're looking at these on your computer or not, but I'm seeing them here in big 8x10. I am not contradicting you, Councilman Dingfelder. This is evidence to me, and that's why I cannot support your motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We have a motion from Councilman Dingfelder. We have a second from Councilman Carlson. A roll call vote.
Citro,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Goods, Miranda,
No.
Vieira, and Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion did not carry with Citro, Goods, and Miranda voted no, and Vieira being absent.
Okay, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you. To explain to council, which the council knows, but also to explain to public, your charter requires any action to be a vote of 4. So there being a vote of 3-3, there was no action taken. A vote to not accept this motion is not a vote to deny. So let me read you the rule, Rule 6H. If a motion in a quasi-judicial matter fails to receive at least 4 votes, the motion fails. And if another motion in order is not made, the public hearing shall be automatically reopened and continued to a time certain at the next regularly scheduled council meeting. And that next regularly scheduled council meeting is Thursday, March 4th. That's your rules, council. So the question is there another motion in order, or shall this hearing just be reopened and continued to March 4th?
Is there another motion? Let's see, the vote is split 3-3 unless something changes, but if not, we motion to reopen the hearing and move this to or continue this to our next regular scheduled meeting on March 4th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
You have a motion? Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the said case in question, violations were committed, and ask for a vote on it.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro, and this is that violations were committed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there's no discussion, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Citro,
Yes.
Carlson,
No.
Dingfelder,
No.
Goods,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Vieira, and Maniscalco.
No.
Motion did not carry with Carlson, Dingfelder, and
We have a motion to, I'm sorry, may we have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
So
We
moved.
have a motion from Councilman Good, second from Councilman Citro, in favor? Aye. All right, can we
Now,
get a
council,
motion to?
if I can, just to remind you the process, what normally happens under this rule. What happens is I will be in touch with Councilmember Vieira, who was absent. He will have the opportunity between now and March 4th to have reviewed the hearing and be prepared to vote. My suggestion would be that the testimony has been taken. There will be no additional public comment taken on this. Councilman Goods would have the opportunity to ask questions if he felt the need to, and if not, the hearing would then be closed and a motion would be taken and a vote would be taken on that day. Thank you.
All right, we get a motion to continue this item to March 4th,
So moved.
It's at the time now. Shall we set the time? Shall we set the time for 10:30 a.m.?
10:30 is perfect. We have a motion for March 4th at 10:30 a.m. Motion from Councilman Goods to continue this, second from Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. We're going to be in recess for about 5 minutes.
Thank y'all. Is that yours?
Again, a reminder, council, that the webinar is staying live, so please mute your microphones. Thank you.